Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And the offseason is finally about to get underway today, as we talked about towards the end of the last episode. Going to be a very eventful offseason for Major League Baseball because two expansion teams will be joining us, including the Salt Lake Trappers, who are going to be joining the National League West for the 2039 season. So in less than a month, we've got an expansion draft ahead of us. We can only protect 25 players, kind of outlined at the end of last episode, some of the tough decisions that we have ahead of us. Big part of the expansion is just that we've become a pretty strong and dominant team. And admittedly, the series has gotten a little stale, so we want to kind of hopefully put ourselves in a situation where we're going to have to make some tough decisions and lose some pretty important players either to our future or to our present in the expansion draft, given how deep we are on our major league roster and in our minor league organization as well. I mentioned at the end of the last episode that I don't think it's inconceivable that we end up having 10 plus players plucked from our organization in this expansion draft. So I think technically the right way to play things, if I was just being completely focused on trying to optimize and win, would be to trade away some of those more highly regarded players that we're not going to be able to protect in 3 and 4 and 5 for one kind of deals, to bring on some either really young guys that we don't have to protect or some guys that we clearly would protect. And that's clearly the optimal way to play things, but since the whole point of this is to shake things up and have to lose some players off of our roster, we're not really going to spend too much time doing anything like that. I did make 2 trades, and I don't think you'll be surprised at some of the players who were involved. We'll talk about those briefly. We did trade away our number 5 starter from this past year, Aaron Bell, 13-9 with a 4.55 ERA. He's been a good pitcher for us over the 3 years since he's been a member of the Rockies organization. Started over 30 games for us every year. Combined record of 38-18 for us. So he's been a good, solid major league pitcher. But he was a guy who was set to make about $9.5 million in arbitration this upcoming year. Given some of the depth we have coming up in the organization behind him, we felt like we were not going to bring him back at that level. So we decided to get what we could for him. We also traded away the young outfielder Tim Metzaros, who's never really gotten a shot with us. He was up briefly this year for the first time, hit just a $172 and 58 at-bats, and is not a big part of our organization. Traded them both for a flyer on a 23-year-old pitcher, Salvatore Alvarez. We think he's got pretty good potential. The issue is he's already 23 years old, and a lot of that potential is pretty untapped at this point. So I really don't think he's ultimately going to reach the levels that our scout thinks he could. But he has a profile where if he did, he could be a respectable 4th or 5th starter, really kind of just a 5-inning guy. Was 1-3 with an ERA of just over 4 when he made his debut in Double-A this year. Do like that he's durable. Again, I think realistically, I don't think he's ever as good a pitcher as Bell. But given that we weren't going to bring Bell back anyways, and we were not going to be protecting Metzaros, I guess he still could have theoretically remained on our team in AAA if nobody picked him in the expansion draft and nobody took him from us in waivers at the end of spring training next year. but seemed like a way to bring on a guy that at least gives us a little bit of a lottery ticket to become a useful major leaguer. The other trade is with our somewhat frequent trading partner, the Atlanta Braves, and this one I like. We gave up, unfortunately, one of the guys who we thought could potentially take over for Bell is a fifth starter, Kikaku Kawakami. 26 years old, and he certainly has a profile to be a good, solid 5-inning major league starter. The issue is he's missed all of this past year with an injury. He's fragile physically. He was good a year ago for us with a 3.83 ERA over the first 44 and 2/3 innings of his major league career. I don't love potentially moving on from him, or in this case, actually moving on from him. But given that he is fragile, 26 years old, I felt like I was probably going to end up going in different directions as far as our fifth starter or long reliever out of the bullpen. And we were able to bring on an interesting young outfielder from the Braves, left-handed hitting Eric Mokeen, also known as Smo S, whatever that means. I've mentioned over the last couple of episodes that I am a little concerned with the lack of left-handed bats that we've got potentially on our major league team next year. Mokeen, 25 years old, durable, positive personality traits. He's a competent outfielder. He's actually hit very well in 3 very small stints in the majors over the past 3 seasons. He's actually kind of been supplanted in the Braves organization by a couple of the outfielders that we traded away to them a year or two ago when we picked up Bob Russell. So it's kind of weird that we traded them outfielders for a starting pitcher. We actually also included a top pitching prospect in that trade as well. And now we're trading them a pitcher for an outfielder. I don't see Mokeen being an everyday player. He's really not much of a hitter against left-handed pitching. But he does give us a more than competent major league bat against right-handed pitching. Is he going to be incredible? No, but 60 contact, 60 gap power, 55 home run power, and a slightly below average eye with durability, some good personality traits, competent defensive. Certainly puts him in the mix to be a 4th or 5th outfielder for us. And if we do end up either through the expansion draft or some of the decisions we make, losing a fair amount of the left-handed hitters whose futures on our team are up in question right now, could he conceivably be our designated hitter or left fielder against right-handed pitching next year? It's not inconceivable that he could be. So bring Mokeen on board for Kikaku Kawakami. Hopefully this is one of these trades that makes the Braves a little better, makes us a little better. Felt like we had a little more depth at pitching than we did in terms of left-handed hitting major league quality bats at this point. So think that bringing Mokeen on board will hopefully be a positive move for us. But other than that, I'm really not going to spend any time over the next few weeks thinking about trades. As I mentioned, optimizing things you would in the situation that we're in with a ton of excess talent. Try to trade away that excess talent in multiplayer trades to get guys that we are clearly going to protect for guys that we probably couldn't protect, or pick up guys that we don't need to protect in the draft. But again, big part of the expansion draft is just to try to shake things up, shake loose some talent from our organization. So we're not going to optimize every last decision ahead of the expansion draft. And with the fact that we traded away Bell, we only had 2 other arbitration eligible players that we needed to make decisions on, and we've decided we're going to make offers to both Nate Harris and Mike Girard. Doesn't necessarily mean that 3.5 weeks from now we're going to protect both of them in the expansion draft. Girard at around $8.5 million next year is incredibly expensive for a backup catcher, but he remains one of the premier defensive catchers in baseball. And he did put up close to a 2 WAR for us last year, playing primarily against left-handed pitching, where he's still a effective major league hitter. Given that we expect to remain a win-now team, we're at least going to keep the options open to have Girard as our very expensive backup for one more year, or if we decide not to protect them both in the draft and end up losing one of them, maybe putting ourselves in a position where Nate Harris is our backup next year. But right now, if I had to bet, I think we probably end up protecting Girard among our 25 and probably willing to lose Harris, who does still have options. So although we'll be spending close to $3 million on him next year if he accepts our arbitration offer, he will be a guy that we can still stash in AAA as an insurance policy, given that Girard does have some injury issues over the course of his career. And with that, it's time to start moving forward through awards season. Gold Glove winners will be announced in about a week. Find out Cy Young and MVP awards close to 2 weeks from now. And then we head towards salary, arbitration, free agency filings. Find out what the free agent market looks like right before we'll finish off this episode, which will be right before we have to submit our decisions as far as the expansion draft protection lists. And we've simmed ahead a few days, haven't gotten to the start of awards season quite yet, but signing some guys to minor league contracts as far as renewals. I also got both of our catchers that we were talking about, Harris and Girard, signed. Trent Kaysen and Bernie Barrera both signed their arbitration deals, along with Phil Dingwell. The fans positive to all of those, but already at 100 fan interest, so we won't see any impact there, although hopefully things are a little higher behind the scenes. Interesting, Derby Mahez, who is a veteran of the team and supposedly a fan favorite and one of the most likable players in the league. We also signed him to his final arbitration eligible year, and no reaction from the fans to that, which was a little surprising. Have a new team trainer after Rick Jameson finally retired. Jim Cooper, probably not as good as Jameson. We do love that he's legendary in rehabbing arm injuries, excellent in preventing arm injuries, and good with fatigue recovery. Areas where he's weaker, only okay in rehabbing back injuries, average in preventing other injuries. But overall, all things considered, a pretty strong profile for a team trainer. So hopefully we won't end up with any significant drop-off in terms of our ability to keep this team healthy, although no trainer is as good as Rick Jameson is. And a more significant potential signing, number 2 prospective starter for next year at this point in our organization, Bob Russell, just signed a 6-year extension, bought out his final 2 arbitration eligible seasons, as well as his first 4 years of free agency. Potentially, we did get a team option for the final year when he's 33 years old at $18 million, but 5 years guaranteed, and then a little bit of an insurance policy for us on the end if things don't work out as well as we think they will with Russell. I believe that was also something that ownership wanted us to do. They wanted us to extend Bob Russell, so a small positive piece of information in terms of our relationship with Mr. Monfort. Not that it really needs much help at this point. And we have finally made it to the early stages of award season. Gold Glove winners announced yesterday. As we've talked about in previous episodes, we were 3rd in defensive efficiency this past year, 1st in zone rating. And over the last several seasons, we've generally been one of the best defensive teams in the National League, at least according to those statistical categories. But we just never seem to have any Gold Glove winners. It seems like it's a situation. I can't say we never do because we have gotten one in center field from Anthony Pack Jr. in recent seasons. But it does seem like we just are a team that has a lot of very good defensive players at most positions, but no one who is truly best in class, unfortunately. We did win an award here today, though, the Mariano Rivera Award, an interesting one. Third consecutive year that the Colorado Rockies have won the Mariano Rivera Award, but our third different winner and the first time our closer has won it. 2 years ago, it was setup man Chris Kennedy. Last year, it was setup man / stopper Justin Gibson. This year, the award finally goes to Adonis Valera, and you can see there's now 32 voters, so they've already given votes in the NL and AL awards to media representatives from the Salt Lake and Indianapolis newspapers, I would assume. Valera, almost a unanimous winner. 31 out of 32 first place votes for the lefty closer. Led the league with 76 games pitched. Put up a 2.30 ERA with 41 saves. Also won 9 games for us. Very impressive 37-8 shutdown to meltdown ratio. And he struck out 116 batters in 97 2/3 innings. So definitely a well-earned award for Valera, who is a guy that we actually need to exercise that team option for next year. I'll go do that now. Got so wrapped up in all of this expansion talk that I forgot we did have some option year decisions to make. And we did have the option year for Valera that we needed to decide on. Justin Gibson had opted in, as we had talked about in the past, to the final year of his contract. Also have an option year decision on Ryan Stone. Bit of a down year for him offensively, but he is a left-handed hitter. He's a guy who's spent his whole career in our organization. We drafted him in the first round a decade ago out of UVA. And he's had a really nice career for us as a first baseman, playing almost entirely against right-handed pitching over the course of his career, where he remains a pretty effective hitter. Given that we're almost certainly going to be moving on from our longtime left-handed hitting DH, Ted Miller, I think that it does make sense to bring Stone back. No guarantee, actually, that he is going to be among the 25 players that we protect. But we at least want to be able to make a decision on him in a few weeks, since even with that trade that we made for the young outfielder who is a left-handed hitter, still probably need a few more proven left-handed bats in the lineup. And with Ted Miller almost certainly not going to be with us next year, Ryan Stone is the by far most established left-handed bat on our team that we have available. And another day, another award announced. A name received a Silver Slugger for us, who is a very well-established name, and not a surprise, although perhaps surprising that another guy didn't get it. We felt like the young second baseman Johnny Castillo and the young left fielder Mike Castro both had outstanding offensive seasons. But it's actually the veteran Kevin Roberts Jr. who played in just 104 games for us due to injuries, but still had a monster year for us with a 183 WRC plus, who looks like at this point he wins the 5th Silver Slugger Award of his storied career at the age of just 30 years old. He's a guy, when I mentioned defensively, a very capable defensive right fielder. This past year out in right field, 3.1 zone rating, 1.045 defensive efficiency, so definitely an above average defensive player. But although he's won 3 MVPs, 7-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger, 6-time World Champion, and he's won more postseason MVP awards across the years than we can even count, since some of them are hidden behind his head right now. He never has actually gotten the honor as a Gold Glove right fielder, even though he has been a very strong defensive player over the course of his career. And despite the fact that our season ended earlier than hoped in the National League Championship Series to the Mets, in the least surprising news ever, our manager, Toby Staveland, who became our manager in our first full season with these Rockies in 2026 and has led us to the playoffs every year first, wins at this point his ninth consecutive Manager of the Year award. He's dominated this entire decade of the 2030s. If he wins it next year, he'll be 10 for 10 across the decade, doing even better than Wayne Gretzky did in terms of winning National League Hockey League Most Valuable Player awards in that decade of the 80s. And we finally made it to the big awards, the Cy Young Award and the Most Valuable Player awards in each league. Over in the American League, Connor McRae of the Minnesota Twins, 24-year-old former first-round pick just a couple years ago, 9th overall out of Coastal Carolina, is your American League Cy Young Award winner in his second season in the majors, a 20-4 record with a league best 2.15 ERA for the Twins, 241 strikeouts and 204 2/3 innings, allowed only 11 home runs on the season, put up a league best 57 FIP minus and a league best 7.8 WAR among American League pitchers. Ugly McRae certainly looks like he's going to be a very effective left-handed pitcher for many years to come. Over in the National League, we had two players who received votes. Leo Martinez, our three-time Cy Young Award winner, finished third in the voting with a couple of first-place votes. Geffen Kennedy, who was part of that Mets team that took us out in the NLCS, finished just behind him in the balloting. Our closer, Adonis Valer, who, as we talked about earlier, won the National League Mariano Rivera Award, also got a little bit of attention for the Cy Young Award. But your winner of the NL Cy Young Award is the 26-year-old right-hander Arturo Martinez of the Padres. He's now won the last two Cy Young Awards. He broke Martinez's Cy Young streak at 3 in a row, and now he's just a year away from matching him. 18-6 record this year for the Padres, league best 207 innings pitched, 2.04 ERA was the best in all of the majors, struck out 227 batters, also led the National League in strikeout to walk ratio, quality start percentage, FIP minus, and WAR among pitchers. Some familiar names for our MVPs this year. Jose Estran of the White Sox just edged out Mike Higham of the Astros. Estran, you may remember, is a guy who was in the IAFA pool a decade ago, a guy we seriously thought about making an offer for. We went in a different direction, and Estran, of course, has developed into one of the top hitters in all of baseball, led the American League in runs, batting, on-base percentage, OPS, WRC plus, and batter WAR with a 9.1 this year. And Nims Estran is now a 4-time American League Most Valuable Player. Mike Higham, who received only one fewer first-place vote than him for the Astros, 26-year-old second baseman, had a really big year, 279 average with a league best 40 homers and 116 runs batted in. Over in our National League, a unanimous winner, Sansao Samaro of the Atlanta Braves, another IAFA signing who developed into an absolutely devastating hitter, had a monster year for Atlanta, leading the National League in runs, homers, ribbies, slugging percentage, OPS, WRC plus, and WAR. Marks the second MVP award of Samaro's career, and he's not even 25 years old yet. Kevin Roberts Jr. of our Rockies finished fourth in the voting. If he had not missed a third of the season, who knows what might have happened. Connor Camo, the former or current still two-way player, formerly of the White Sox, who he faced in 4 consecutive World Series. Got some attention for MVP in his first year for the Phillies. Mike Castro, Leo Martinez, and Johnny Castillo all received some MVP votes as well. Castro is a guy who is still technically eligible for the prospect promotion incentive, but clearly finishing around 10th in the voting or 9th, wherever he ended up, is not going to result in any draft pick compensation for our Rockies, unfortunately. And we've made it to the start of free agency, so we'll take a brief look at the top players who are available. 2 of them coming off of our roster. Ted Miller, who we've talked about, finally let him hit free agency. And then James Wood, who was a rental of ours from the Yankees, who was effective for us in 20 games and 55 at-bats, but ended up injured before the postseason started, unfortunately, both among the top free agents available. The international free agents are where there can always be a surprise, so we'll take a quick look at whether there's anyone here that might be particularly interesting in heading after, and certainly left-handed pitcher Carlos A.O. Casares out of Cuba. Looks like a potentially outstanding major league pitcher. Almost 34 years old, so not going to have a extremely long run in the major leagues at this point, but good personality, excellent stamina, 5-pitch arsenal, really good movement on his pitches, ground ball tendencies. Looking for about $22 million a year to spend, even though we have saved a little bit of money in our arbitration signings, and then we, of course, also traded away, as we talked about, Mr. Bell, who was set to make some decent money next year. Probably not going to have a ton of flexibility to play actively in free agency, but there definitely is an opportunity for us to bring on a guy like Casares with the money that we've got available at this point. You can see a little less than $19 million, but we certainly could lower our scouting and player development budgets, and it's also conceivable that when the expansion draft happens in a couple days, we will have some guaranteed major league salaries coming off of our books as well. Second baseman Rodolfo Sergey Saez, also looking for around $21 million. Also a guy who's going to be 34 years old soon, and also a guy from Cuba. Fragile physically, really good eye. Don't necessarily see him as being someone who is going to be a big-time focus of ours, but we'll certainly at least scout him to learn more about him. It looks like those are probably the 2 most interesting international free agents who are out there. So when we take a look at the top-end free agents, prices all of a sudden this year are a lot lower than they have been. There's always such weird stuff going on with the game, which is odd at this point, but Travis Ramstad, a 30-year-old shortstop who's pretty solid defensively, very popular with the fans, good speed. The bat, certainly not special at this point, but he still put up a 110 WRC plus last year. And over the course of his major league career, he's put up a 112 WRC plus. Looking for just $17.5 million a year seems a little low. Isn't Jason House the guy that the Cubs cut a year ago that we reassigned to them? I think he might be. For some reason, the Cubs just hate this guy, Jason House, and decide to let him continually hit free agency where he asks for very little money. Guy put up a 107 WRC plus in a WAR of close to 2. the Cubs could have kept him for around $1.4 million, and they let him hit free agency for the second straight year. So definitely can be a little frustrating that a game as well established as OOTP should be at this point has some weird quirks that just randomly show up. But certainly some interesting hitters available on the market. Not that we necessarily need to be going crazy to add anybody. Taking a look at the top end of the pitching market as well. Well, there's someone who at least has a reasonable demand. Jerry Gomez, 30-year-old, extremely popular player, big-time right-handed pitcher, is fragile physically, was only 8-10 for the White Sox this past year, although he did lead the league in strikeouts per 9 innings. Likely to be too expensive for us and not necessarily a huge need. We mentioned Casares, the import from Cuba. You can see certainly some other interesting pitchers who are potentially available on the market that we will be investigating further, but not going to spend a lot of time thinking about free agency over the near term because the expansion draft is coming up. Our protection list is due tomorrow. We'll finish off this episode just talking through the list a little bit, and this will be the last opportunity for members of the Worldwide Scouting Department to opine on what we should perhaps do or not do in this upcoming expansion draft. You can see we've tentatively got 21 players protected at this point. A few additions since we looked at this last time. Some of the younger pitchers in our organization. We did add the catcher, Mike Girard, as we talked about. The new right fielder we picked up, Eric Mokeen. We put him on the list as well. Again, doesn't mean we're going to protect all of these guys, but wanted to at least start framing out in a little bit more detail what our options might look like. If we protect these 21 players, only 4 other guys that we can add to the list, and there's certainly more than 4 players we'd like to keep in our organization. Taking a look just at the pitchers where we could have some big decisions ahead of us. Ryan Bull, former 5th-round pick, who we think has a pretty high ceiling. Love the personality, good stamina, good at holding on runners. Don't necessarily think his stuff is going to be anything special. And he still has a lot of work to do on that changeup at the age of 23 to have essentially have a full 3-pitch rotation that you'd like to have from a starter. But I think his movement can be above average and his control can be exceptional. Certainly could see Bull being an interesting player that we wouldn't want to necessarily just let an expansion team select. Jake Lyons, former 2nd-round pick out of West Virginia, has not done much in his 2 opportunities in the majors, but still has a profile that suggests he could be a pretty good left-handed pitcher. That said, he's almost 26 years old. He's fragile physically, and those fly ball tendencies aren't necessarily going to work that well in Colorado, which we've seen a little bit in the limited sample size that he has. Jeff Colson, former 1st-round pick, missed most of this past season, although he did get back in time to start 13 games in AAA after he recovered from a pretty significant injury. Was not good down there, but with the fact that we have at this point traded away both Aaron Bell and Kakaki Kawakami, Colson certainly should be in the mix to be possibly a 5th starter for us next year, or if not, certainly in the competition to be a long or middle reliever for us. Tough decision on him. Justin Gibson, who, as we mentioned, was the National League Mariano Rivera Award winner just a year ago, one of the premier pitchers in baseball, but he's making $15 million. I tend to think that these expansion teams are going to have so much money to spend and not a ton of high-profile players available in the expansion draft that a price tag like that isn't going to scare them off. so we may need to add Gibson to our protected list. Similar situation with Noah Schultz, former two-time Cy Young Award winner, set to make $25 million next year and likely be our number 3 starter in his final year with us. Can we make a case to protect him? Matt Stream, guy that we traded for last offseason, another guy who looks like he could potentially be a respectable 5th starter in the majors, but he missed the entire season this year after tearing his rotator cuff. And then Danny Dominguez, another guy who could very well be competing for a 5th spot or a long relief spot for us, did make his major league debut this year. You can see there's, I guess, 7 or 8 pitchers that we really like a lot and would like to protect. And to protect all 7 of those guys, we're going to have to cut 3 guys off of this list. So some interesting decisions ahead of us. The batters, I don't think there's quite as many guys that we love as there are among the pitchers. But Elliott Bedford, who could be our backup catcher of the future, current starting center fielder Anthony Pack Jr., current starting shortstop Elian Pena, the first baseman Ryan Stone that we talked about, been a very important left-handed hitting first baseman for us for close to a decade at this point. He's typically been the number 3 hitter on our lineup against right-handers. Ted Slade, a guy who hit over 50 homers in the high minors this past year. Incredible potential home run power, although that's really all he brings. Hendrik Jan van Gorkum, a former IAFA signing, who doesn't really look like a big-time prospect at this point, but it is his birthday today, so happy 25th birthday, Hendrik Jan van Gorkum. The tall tactician, probably not somebody that we would protect, but still a player who we have invested heavily in over the years. Nate Harris, who could end up still being an important guy for us if we stash him in AAA behind J.D. Lee and Mike Girard, but it's going to be real difficult to protect him. Leo Landa, another former international free agent signing who looks like he could be a useful major league player. Probably not somebody who gets protected, but you can see that regardless of what we do with those final 4 spots we have available, there's a lot of guys out there that we would really like to protect that we won't be able to. Pena, set to make $11 million this year. Love his defense. The bat is not great at this point. He was very productive given his ratings offensively with 12 homers, 69 ribbies last year. But do we not protect a guy like Pena, thinking that perhaps on the free agent market we could go after somebody like Travis Ramstad with the money that we have? Not that he's as good defensively, and I don't even know that we would necessarily play him at shortstop, but he's a better hitter at this point than Pena. He's younger than Pena. He's healthier than Pena. Do we expose Pena, hope that someone takes him, and then potentially upgrade by bringing Ramstad on board? Certainly something to consider. Pack Jr., another guy who's very talented defensively, really good speed. Another guy who had a exceptional for him at this stage in his career offensive season and season overall with a WAR of close to 5. Set to make $9 million this upcoming season. Can we afford to potentially risk losing him and lose some of that really strong defense that he's helped anchor for us in recent years in center field? So a lot of very interesting decisions that I'll be thinking about as far as what we want to do in this upcoming expansion draft. If you have any thoughts on who you would or would not protect, would love to hear them in the comments section. And next time around, we will make our decisions and open ourselves up to either first guessing if you speak now before that episode, or second guessing if you wait to tell us what we did wrong after we make those decisions. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.